Hey all, Dale here from the WP Guru, and in this video we're going to take a look at how we can use Elementor to trigger a ThriveCart modal checkout. Now, whilst ThriveCart does provide users with a built-in button or a custom image that you can use to trigger a modal cart, often you're building a sales page or landing page on your website using your own elements and buttons and all that kind of stuff that fit with your design. And often these buttons can have animations or hover effects, all that kind of stuff, and you want to maintain that style throughout your page. Using a button from a third party can kind of break away from that styling choice of your website. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at how we can use a button within Elementor to trigger a ThriveCart modal cart, such as this example here. The first thing we want to do is make sure we've got our ThriveCart checkout set up to be a modal cart. So over in ThriveCart, if we edit our product settings and head over to checkout, if you're not already using a modal cart, you will need to redesign your product to use a modal cart. Now, if you're using a checkout page URL and you're sending traffic to that checkout page URL, I'd probably recommend cloning your product so that we have two versions of it. If you do want to have a URL version and then a modal cart version. In this example, I just have a modal cart, but you can click on Browse Gallery. And then at the top, we have a couple options. You either have modal carts under here, under New, or we have modal carts under Legacy, called a pop-up. In this example though, I'm using a modal cart under the New Builder. And it's this one style here. If we launch the editor, we can see how that looks. You can see I've got a very basic cart, just got collecting an email address. They can choose a pricing option. I've got my payment fields and then the option to complete an order. For example, in the editor, I can also change how that button looks. So if I go up to the drop down at the top here, click on embed options, we can change how the ThriveCart's native option will display on our page. So by default, it's this button here. If we click on that button, we do have some styling options and stuff like that we can set. Or you can use a custom image or just some text to trigger that modal cart. The choice is yours. However, in this video, we're going to look at using a button from Elementor. So I'm not going to make any changes in here, but this doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to exit out of the editor. I'm going to save my product. And we're not actually going to use this embed code here. But just to show you what this does look like on your website, let's just copy this over and add it to my page. So if I'm just going to add the HTML element to my page, add the ThriveCart embed code, you see it shows up there. If we publish, come back over here and refresh, this is how the ThriveCart button would look by default. And if we click that, obviously, it then triggers the modal cart. But in this example, we're going to use our own custom button. So let's head back over to Elementor. Okay, so I've got my page in Elementor, which has got nothing added to it. Nothing to do with ThriveCart right now. If we go back over to my sales page, refresh, we can see this button no longer triggers my modal cart. So the first thing we want to do is add a custom HTML element to our site. So over to widgets and search for HTML. It doesn't matter where we add this, the user isn't going to see it, it's just going to contain some code. So I'm going to drop that in my page here. And then what we need to do is we need to grab the embed code from ThriveCart and also a bit of custom CSS styling just to hide the copyright date at the bottom. So we have a bunch of code here, but we're not going to use this. Instead, if you head over to my site, we have a snippet of code here which we're going to copy. And just to break this down, basically this is the embed script from the classic or the original sort of modal cart, and this is what triggers the pop-up. And then this is the custom CSS styling that removes that footer element from the pop-up. So if we copy that, come over to here and paste that into our HTML element, we can just save that. And next we need to make some changes to the button. So if we left click on the button, we want to head over to advanced. And what we want to do is we want to add a CSS class in this field here. And then also down at the bottom in attributes, we're going to add a couple of custom attributes. So the first thing we want to do is under layout, CSS classes, we want to enter ThriveCart-button. And again, on the website, we've got a copy of that as an example. So you can just copy that and paste it over in this box here. And then further down under attributes, again, we've got a couple of details over here that we can copy and paste. So we've got the ThriveCart account ID and the ThriveCart product ID. Now your account ID is taken from the URL in your dashboard, as is the product ID. Let me give you an example from my account. So in my account here, we're on the get URL page for this specific product. My account ID is the WP Guru, and then the product ID is number 2. If I was to go into another product, get the URL, we can see this product is number 3. And so that's the product that's going to basically triggering or showing in the modal cart. So we'll go ahead and we're going to copy this data here as an example into these attributes, but then we need to change this ABC and the X. So the ABC will be changed to my account ID, and then product was 2. So now if we publish this and save this now, we've done 3 things. We've added this custom HTML, we've given the button a CSS class, and we've added some custom attributes. We go back to our sales page now and refresh. If we left click this button now, we can see it triggers the modal cart as expected. And obviously we can go back into ThriveCart, and if we make any changes to this product's design, then we don't need to update the embed code. So if we go into the editor, let's add a heading up here, my product, exit and save. Come over here and refresh, trigger that modal cart again. We see them changes have been added. There are a couple of things to note whilst doing this. The key thing is you want to make sure that your product in ThriveCart is a modal cart. If you try and use a product that's a checkout, just a standard checkout URL, you may find that when launching that modal cart, it kind of breaks out and refreshes the page and takes you direct to the checkout page. So you need to make sure your product in ThriveCart is set up to be a pop-up or modal checkout. And finally, a tip when you're editing in Elementor, you want to make sure that if you select the button here, you want to right click and click on edit button to bring up the options. If you left click on the button after saving your page and refreshing it or going back into the editor, you'll find that you get caught in this never-ending loading loop. This is because Elementor partially loads the script on the sort of back end here, but it's not triggering the modal as it's not being loaded on the actual front end. So this is because this is the editor and not the actual front end of your website, things won't load correctly. If this happens and you've made other changes to your site, you want to make sure you click on publish first to save it. But if you refresh the page, that will obviously load okay and take you out of that loop. You can then go through and edit any other elements on your page as needed. But again, if you need to edit the button that you've set up to trigger a ThriveCart modal cart, you just want to right click and click on edit button to get into them options. Hope that video was helpful, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment under the video.